Hey guys, what's up? Joe. Morning coffee. Fucking intro. Yeah. So supposed to be doing a lot of like remodeling videos, of his house project. He's not usually using his lavalier mic right now. I'm using my gaming headset to make this tutorial mainly because I want to make sure to be able to have like the mic near my mouse. The main difference between these headphones and this headphone is that this one they're not as bassy as this one, right? This one there's more highs. You're able to hear like the highs more, right? Clearly than with this one, right? So there are more frequencies in the higher range, the mid range that you're able to hear with the studio version of the headphones, right? With this one, everything's more bassy, and when it comes to gaming, they're good because kind of like any high pitched sound, say like the gunfire or like clacks or whatever, it kind of muffles everything down so it doesn't fucking damage your hearing, right? But you're still able to hear everything around you pretty clearly, right? So when it comes to gaming, these are awesome. But when it comes to editing, I do encourage to get yourself a studio quality headphones, right? For the sake of this video, pretty much I'm going to use these headphones. That way, like, if I can hear through these headphones, then you can probably hear it through your headphones. At least that's how I see it, right? But what I'm about to show you, it'll be more noticeable, more recognizable if you had a studio quality headphones, right? But in this case, you can still hear it, but just not as well, right? But since he'd be using like a smaller camera, I think he has like the LX 100 from Sony, I believe. It's like a handheld camera. It's small. Just been vlogging using like the built-in microphone to get like his audio and all that, right? There's no lavalier mic, so since his house was empty, there was like a lot of echo and all this stuff and reverb going on. Had to like put in like an extra effort to clean up this audio by a lot. All right, so to begin with, please, for the love of fucking God, so please, all right, when you're editing audio, if you go to Windows, you go to audio track mixer and select the sequence, right? So in this case, I got tutorial. It's right here. Now, when you open up the window and you see this, there's a little arrow here in the top left, right? You can click on it. Then you're able to add your filters, right? Go to the master one and be sure to add a hard limiter, right? Pull down menu, amplitude compressor, hard limiter. Double click on that guy. And pretty much set this to -4. That's pretty much I have the limiter and -4. That way anything that gets past that, it gets cut off, right? Please do that to protect your hearing, all right? So stress that enough. Every time I do a fucking tutorial on audio, put a limiter, protect your hearing, all right? Please do that. All right, so you can hear some room noise, right? So the first thing you want to do is basically, I'm going to my cam audio layer, which is layer 1 here, which is over here, audio level 1. The pull down menu, you want to go to filter and EQ. You can get a parametric equalizer, and I already have that here, right? I'm going to double click on this guy, and as you notice, I add a high pass. I'll set it to 100 hertz. That's pretty much where I want it to be cut off at. And then the gain, I'll just drop it all down here to 48 decibels. Now this is, and the same thing with the high pass, right? I click here. I add like the low pass at like 1200 hertz. And same thing, the pull down menu, I just select the 48 decibels, right? Just so I can have like a sharp cutoff, right? So this is what it sounds like without it. And this is with it. So you can see it's less bassy. Pretty much we're removing some lower hums, right? Like we don't need that shit. So any lower hums, you don't need it. Pretty much most of the voice frequencies when he's talking is more here in the center, right?
We are still getting a good amount of rain this week. We don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were...
So a lot of like the bassy, boomy stuff you can hear here in the lower frequencies. So that's going to be there. But so that's that. Also, like if you notice like these dips right here. So pretty much this number here in the top, it shows where in the spectrum, on the audio spectrum, do you want this little frequency adjuster to be at, right? And this number here shows you by how much and by how low do you want to adjust that specific frequency in that area, right? And this number here in the bottom, pretty much it controls like how wide you want the adjustment point to be, right? So wide, the higher, the thinner, the lower, the wider, right? So for me, I usually set that to 50. That way I kind of have like this sharp little point to, specific depict that specific frequency and the audio spectrum there, right? With this type of audio, there was like a different cleaning I had to do than I usually do with like his lavalier mic. So I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. I'm gonna zero these guys. That way I'm not reducing any of those like nasty frequencies I'm talking about. I think these frequencies or those sounds that they refer to in the for audio professionals, they're referred to as hollow sounds. I think I'm not exactly sure, but I'll show you what I'm talking about in a bit. So if you hear when Paul is speaking, mainly when he's saying like the S sound, like those high sounds, there's a lot of like whistling, kind of like high pitched sounds that like they became very annoying like throughout the video because you can hear a lot, right? And he was speaking, so they were like high whistly kind of sounds, right?
Getting a good amount of rain this week. We don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But I've moved our dining room table and the coffee table inside.
So you hear like side.
Table inside. And the coffee table inside.
So like those kind of like sounds like there were a lot of it, right? And like I could hear it with this headphones, but like with this headset, they were more piercing. Like it just didn't sound great, right? So I took the time to make sure I got rid of those high pitched sounds, right? Messing around with like the audio, pretty much I discovered like a lot of those high pitched sounds were around like this area right here, where I have like these points at.
We don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for.
All right, so pretty much like that's what I was doing here, like this, like audio, the equalizer, right? Pretty much we're trying to find a specific like high pitched frequency that gets annoying that sounds right. So like when he's saying that, I look for it, and pretty much like once I find it, then I fucking reduce it by like -3, right?
For these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all.
So you can hear that, right? So I found like that specific like high whistle sound. So now like I can reduce this guy by -3.
Up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But
no, that's one of like the few like hollow sounds, I guess, or one of like those whistly sounds I found. So pretty much like I'm gonna like do the same thing with like the rest of these audio keyframes to like find more of those like nasty whistly sounds.
We don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently.
See, that's one -3.
Few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain.
Yeah, you hear that high pitched like whistling sound
in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these.
All right, gonna reduce that by 3 again.
Few weeks while we were remodeling.
Oh wow!
But we don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys can definitely hear that. Reduce that by -3 and do the last one.
Saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern.
You should try to at least get one of like the lower frequencies, right?
Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain in.
Yeah, it's more of a, I guess, a neck weight, lower bass, whatever. So I'm gonna reduce this also -3. All right, so I try to get most of like the high frequencies, right? Because that's where like most of like the annoying sounds I was getting, like the whistle, like the parts was more in like the high pitch, right? So
in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get a whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. But we don't get.
All right, so that helps, right? But usually it's not enough, right? So no, I didn't add a dynamic processing nor treble because it's already, I don't need that. Usually that's for the lavalier audio, right? But in this case, I just use filters to clean the audio, right? So I did the parametric equalizer. Like I just showed you, I did my high pass and a low pass, and like I found those nasty high pitched sounds and I reduced them a bit. Then like I added a denoise to pull down menu. Went to noise reduction and got a denoise. Most of the noise with cameras, it come from like the lower frequencies, right? Like the lower hums and all this stuff like that. It's more like the low background noise. So usually when I add like the noise reduction, I click on this filter here in the second from the left, and that one focuses more on the lower frequencies, right? So I click on that. And you can increase how much of a noise reduction you want. Now, with the noise reducer, I noticed that lower values are best, right? Because if you add too much of a noise reduction, it starts to get this weird, like, ducking sound, and you don't want that. So, I mean, 1 to 5% is usually what I tend to use.
We are still getting a good amount of rain this.
Yeah, I usually don't like adding too much noise reduction. And in this case, since I did want to remove some like the noise, I didn't add that much. I did like 1%, I believe. See, like output noise. You can see here is reducing some of the noise. So I added very little bit like a noise reduction just to get some of the nasty low background hiss in the back, you know, like the lower frequency. So I just added 1%. I could go a little higher if I want. Maybe let's try 3. As you can see, it's reducing more like the noise here. But like I said, once you start going too much, like it sounds too muddy. I don't know. So I'm gonna leave it at 2. Again, this is all experimental, right? So this is the output noise only. I'm gonna check that so I can hear like the audio with the noise remover.
A whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few.
All right, so there's a lot of still, right? Even though we added some like filters. So like the last filter I added was in the amplitude and compression, the de-esser, right? So I'll double click that guy. So I'll turn this on.
These few weeks while we were remodeling.
So I'm gonna click on output, Sibilance only. I guess that's what it's called, Sibilance. So pretty much like you want to go to the area where it has that spike. That way you can like pause it so you can like see, have a visual like waveform of where that audio spike is at. So you can see here, and there's like the spike right there. I usually leave everything by default. The threshold is on -24, right? But the center frequency, I kind of move that to where that like spike is at, like around there. Then I can reduce it to tighten it up a bit. So you can still hear it. So we're gonna check that.
California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. A whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. A whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few weeks while we were remodeling. A whole lot of rain in Southern California, but apparently they saved it all up for these few.
So you can see like it's not as sharp anymore, right? So yeah, it does help adding these filters to help reduce that nasty sounds, right? And yeah, it's at a point now where like when I watch videos and I hear that like sound, and it gets very distracting for me because, you know, I guess I pay attention to it more now. But yeah, anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. So yeah, like for in this case, because he was using like the camera built-in microphone and like his house being empty, there was a lot of echo, there was a lot of like, you know, reverb going on in the room. There's a lot of you know, high-pitched sounds. It sounded pretty badly, right? So it was kind of like unbearable, especially with, you know, headphones designed for like audio production. Audio is very important. If people can't hear your shit, if it's too frustrating, it makes the ear uncomfortable, then, you know, people are not gonna watch your videos because, you know, it's uncomfortable to listen to, right? You know, kind of like the douchebags, they add the fucking ear rape, excessively loud sound, the distorted audio just because they think it's funny. You know, no. Yeah, make sure your audio is nice and clean and as smooth as possible so it can be more of a nice hearing experience, right? So yeah, anyways, that's all I got for you in this video. Hope it helps. Take care and peace.